These are America's inland waterways, the lifeblood of the nation. From Virginia to Mississippi, it's a massive network of rivers, canals and lakes that's been critical to moving cargo around the US and beyond since before the Great Depression. And it's all thanks to these, the hundreds of locks and dams that allow goods to pass through, control water levels and create energy. Structures which have stood firm for almost a century. Well, not all of them.
A major waterway used to ship goods across the world is shut down in West Alabama.
The Demopolis Lock is closed after a concrete failure forced the Army Corps of Engineers to shut it down January 16th.
A large piece of concrete broke away from the structure, creating a gaping hole in the dam.
A lot of these systems are now in need of a serious overhaul. That is, if they haven't already reached the point of critical failure. Many have been operating for much longer than they were designed to, and if the ones at risk aren't fixed soon, the consequences could be disastrous. That's why the US Army Corps of Engineers is now working to bring these historic barricades up to modern standards before it's too late. If you were asked to think of some of the most important types of infrastructure in the United States, what would they be? Well, you'd probably go with roads, airports, power stations, or even the systems that provide us with the internet. But how many of you went for the inland waterways? In other words, the massive web of marine highways that spans across the US and that's used to transport a third of its GDP. This incredible system, and the more than 200 miles of locks and dams built along it, stretches for 12,000 miles across 28 states. In 2021, around 500 million tons of cargo, worth more than $158 billion in total, were sent via these channels. They're not just vital to the economy. Industry and agriculture rely heavily on them. They keep water levels in check, generate hydropower. Basically, they're a lot more than just rivers, so ensuring they continue to operate is crucial. But there's a problem. Some of those integral locks and dams date back to the 1920s and 30s, like the ones on the Ohio, Mississippi, Tennessee and Illinois rivers. And more than half of them are more than 50 years old. This infrastructure was only designed to last a few decades, and updates are desperately needed. Some sites are in danger or have reached the point of catastrophic failure.
Some river traffic deliveries to the Port of Mobile are at a standstill after a lock failure on the Black Warrior River.
This is a serious issue, according to the crews working to repair the damage.
Take the Demopolis Lock on the Black Warrior River in Alabama, which suffered a major breach in January 2024. A fracture in the concrete upper mitre sill led to a large chunk of it falling away, releasing water under the lock's gate and causing a temporary closure. Now, around 12 million tonnes of freight pass through this lock every year, including steel, coal and crude oil. So when it was put out of business, ships had to take a detour via Mississippi, and that added weeks to the journey. In the end, the repair took months to complete and required teams to cast concrete underwater. It may have been a challenge, but that's what engineers do, find solutions to technical problems. If you're interested in becoming an engineer, then fear not, because it could actually be easier than you think. If figuring out how to fix a leaky lock sounds right up your alley or waterway, then this week's video sponsor Brilliant can give you all the tools you need to get started. Brilliant lets you learn by doing and offers thousands of interactive lessons in subjects like data analysis, probability, programming and coding. But it's the scientific thinking course where you'll pick up the principles of engineering. It's an interactive tour of our physical world, from understanding how gears work to building structures, like the kind you'd find on a US river. But taking the plunge doesn't have to consume all your time. With just a few minutes each day, you can dip in and out whenever you have the time and form a daily learning habit. To try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days, scan the QR code on screen, visit brilliant.org/the B1M, or click the link in the description. You're also going to get 20% off an annual premium subscription. Now, let's get back to that crumbling infrastructure. So what on earth's being done to prevent this sort of thing from happening again across those many waterways with historic infrastructure? Well, over in Pennsylvania, another scheme is getting underway that will do more than just maintenance. This set of locks and dams on the Ohio River is actually being expanded. Economic activity along here is valued at more than $2 billion each year. If these locks were taken out for a year, it would mean replacing those barges with 400,000 trucks or 100,000 train cars. Which isn't as unlikely as you might hope. They've been given a 50% chance of failure by 2028, which could cause the closure of the port of Pittsbirgh, the shutting down of regional commerce, and even drinking water being affected. They simply have to bolster their defences to make them fit enough for the future. Luckily, the $2 billion Upper Ohio Navigation Project is set to do just that. It's a scheme that's now secured almost half of its federal funding. $857 million was set aside for the first phase. That's almost a third of all the money allocated to inland waterways in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, or IIJA. And it's all happening here, just northwest of Pittsburgh.
The country has a stake in this investment. We cannot move commerce. We cannot move commodities unless these locks and dams are repaired.
The Montgomery locks and dams see more than 15 million tonnes of material pass through every year, mostly used for big industries like power generation. Like the Emsworth and Dashiell's locks and dams that are also part of the plan, it no longer meets modern design criteria and has been showing signs of structural fatigue for some time.
Crumbling concrete exposes steel rebar inside the main lock chamber at the 80-year-old Montgomery Lock and Dam in Beaver County.
That was way back in 2016, and things aren't much better today. Recent reports showed leaks visible in the miter gates that hold water back in the lock, and there's been spalling of concrete along the walls of the chambers too. As a result, some of the monolith joints where sections of the chamber walls join together have had to be patched up. They also brought in a hydro-demolition robot to break apart some of the affected areas before new concrete has been applied. The gears that move the gates are also being restored, along with the valves that fill and empty the locks. But they're mostly minor jobs that you'd kind of expect to do when maintaining a piece of infrastructure this old. The main project is about delivering something much bigger. You see, there's another issue at play here. These locks are no longer big enough for modern river traffic. To get the vast quantities of cargo that come into these locks out the other side, barges have to be broken down into smaller groups to fit through, and that wastes precious time. But not for much longer. The auxiliary chamber, 17 metres wide and 110 metres long, is being replaced with a new set of locks that'll be almost twice the size. That'll boost freight capacity along the waterway significantly. Now, over 300,000 cubic metres of concrete is going to be needed for the new chamber, which is why a batch plant for making that material is being built right next to the site. A massive area of land was cleared away for its construction, and a new retaining wall was built to create a boundary between the plant and the locks. And while the main build is yet to properly begin, one critical bit of preparation has already been completed. Giant drills were used to make what's called a secant wall. It's where a series of vertical piles are buried deep in the ground, interlocking with each other to form a sealed barrier. It may only be small, consisting of 17 piles and a 15-metre length, but it's 12 metres deep and had to be done entirely underwater, which is why it took 8 months. With this now in place, contractors will have a platform to build the new chamber wall from. And if it all goes to plan, work on that should get underway in 2025. Overall, the project is expected to take 8 years. As for those other locks and dams further up the river, they're due to be expanded in a similar way as well, but they're both a bit further behind. The Emsworth locks and dam also received $77 million from the infrastructure bill, enough to complete the design and allow construction to begin in the future. As for Dashiell's, it's not yet clear when that project will get underway. But financing these schemes could be about to get a lot easier. In late 2024, Congress will decide whether to allow waterway upgrades covered by the IIJA to be 100% federal funded. They could also choose to give smaller projects a greater share of federal funding, up from 65% to 75%. The rest is going to come from the Inland Waterways Trust Fund, which gets its money from taxing businesses that use the system. Even if that bill doesn't pass, the fact that big money is now being spent on this infrastructure at last is surely a step in the right direction. America's crumbling infrastructure is hardly a secret anymore, but the sorry state of these structures does seem to be somewhat ignored. When you consider what they actually do and what would happen if they were left to deteriorate further, their importance really can't be overstated. The project in Pennsylvania is a really promising start, but with time running out to make similar moves across the country, let's hope there's more to come. This video was sponsored by Brilliant. You can learn more about that at the link below. Don't forget that we're inspiring the next generation of builders through our investment into BrickBorrow, a fantastic LEGO subscription service. You can learn more and get started today over at brickborrow.com. And as always guys, if you enjoyed this video and you want to get more from the definitive video channel for construction, make sure you're subscribed to the B1M.